Julian stands in disbelief as his father tosses the last of his children's belongings onto the front lawn. His sister Amanda smirks from the doorway as his children, Lily, 7, and Carter, 5, cry beside him. "Get out of my house," his father growls. "Good luck surviving, loser," Amanda laughs. Julian watches his childhood home become a fortress of betrayal as rain begins to fall on their possessions. What his father and sister don't realize is that Julian has been preparing for this moment longer than they know. The rain soaked through the cardboard boxes on the lawn, destroying the few family photos I had managed to save after Tara died. My daughter Lily clutched her teddy bear, the only possession she had managed to grab before my father slammed the door. Carter stood silent, his small hand gripping mine so tightly it almost hurt. "Daddy, why does Grandpa hate us now?" Lily asked, her voice barely audible above the patter of rain. I had no good answer. 18 months ago, when Tara's car slid off an icy bridge, my world collapsed. As a 32-year-old widower with 2 small children, moving back to my childhood home had seemed like the only option. My father, Doug, had welcomed us then, understanding that I needed support while grieving and trying to keep my career as a software developer afloat. "He doesn't hate us, sweetie," I said, guiding my children toward our car. "He's just confused right now." The truth was far more complicated. My younger sister, Amanda, 29 and still living at home, had always been jealous of me. Growing up, she resented any attention I received. When I built a successful career, bought a nice home with Tara, and started a family, Amanda's resentment only grew. She never moved out, working part-time at a local clothing store, and remaining our father's favorite, the daughter who needed him. When I first noticed money missing from my wallet, I thought I had misplaced it. Then my bank account showed withdrawals I hadn't made. The final straw came 3 days ago when I discovered that some of Tara's jewelry, pieces I had been saving for Lily, had vanished from my dresser drawer. I confronted Amanda in the kitchen while Dad was at his weekly poker game. "I know you took Tara's necklace," I said quietly. "Those are for Lily when she gets older. They're all she has left of her mother." Amanda's face had twisted into an expression I didn't recognize. "You're accusing me of stealing? That's rich coming from you." "What are you talking about?" "Dad knows all about your gambling problem," she hissed. "Why do you think he's been watching you so closely?" "I've seen the loan applications, Julian. The online poker receipts." I was speechless. "I don't gamble. You know that." She smiled then, a cold smile that sent a chill through me. "Prove it. Dad already believes me. He's been worried about you since Tara died, thinking you might be unstable. This just confirms it." As I drove away from my childhood home with my children in the back seat and our soaked belongings in the trunk, I realized Amanda had been working against me systematically for months. Small comments to our father about my late nights on the computer, suggestions that I seemed stressed about money, questions about whether I was really coping with Tara's death. She had been laying the groundwork for this moment, poisoning Dad's mind with a fiction she had created. What I didn't understand yet was why. The Pinewood Motel sat just off the highway, its neon sign flickering in the growing darkness. $20 a night was all I could afford after checking our bank balance. $342 remained in my account, enough for maybe 2 weeks if we were extremely careful. The room smelled of cigarettes and cheap disinfectant. One bed with a sagging mattress, a small bathroom with rust stains in the tub, and a television that only received 3 channels. Lily and Carter sat on the edge of the bed, still damp from the rain, their eyes wide with confusion. "Is this our new home?" Carter asked, his lower lip trembling. "No, buddy. This is just temporary until I figure things out," I said, trying to sound confident. "Think of it as an adventure." I unpacked our salvaged belongings, laying out the children's soaked clothes to dry over the shower rod. Their faces brightened slightly when I produced a bag of candy I'd grabbed from the gas station, but I could see the trauma settling into their expressions. They had already lost their mother. And now, in one afternoon, they had lost their home and their sense of security. That night, Lily developed a fever. The stress, the rain, and the cold had taken their toll. I sat beside her all night, applying cool washcloths to her forehead and wishing I had thought to grab the children's medicine from the bathroom cabinet before we left. The next morning my phone rang. It was Mrs. Patterson, the principal at Westfield Elementary. "Mr. Barnes, I'm calling about Lily and Carter. They weren't in school today, and given their recent behavioral changes, we're concerned." "They're sick," I said, not wanting to explain our situation. "They'll be back soon." "Julian," she said, using my first name, which told me this was more serious. "Their teachers have noticed changes over the past month. Carter had a crying spell in class last week, and Lily's been withdrawing from her friends." "Is everything all right at home?" "We're going through some family issues," I admitted. "I'm handling it." After that call, my boss phoned. Jeremy was a reasonable man who had been understanding about my decreased productivity after Tara's death. "Julian, I need to talk to you about your project deadlines," he said. "The Meritech account is 3 days behind schedule." "I know. I'll catch up this weekend, I promise." "Look, I understand you're still dealing with a lot, but the company has been patient. If you can't handle the workload, we might need to discuss other options." After that, I tried calling my father, hoping that with some distance, he might listen to reason. "Dad, please, you know me. I don't have a gambling problem. Amanda is lying to you." "She showed me everything, Julian," he replied, his voice cold. "The bank statements, the loan applications. You need help, son, but you need to admit you have a problem first. Those are fake. She's making this up. She also told me about the pills she found in your room. Are you using drugs around my grandchildren?" My blood ran cold. "What pills?" "Dad, I'm not on drugs, you know that." The line went dead. He had hung up on me. That afternoon I ventured into town to buy medicine for Lily and some groceries. At the pharmacy I ran into Paula Turner, my father's neighbor for 15 years. She averted her eyes when she saw me, hurrying down another aisle. At the grocery store, my old high school classmate Steve Graham did the same thing. On a hunch, I stopped by the local coffee shop and sat down next to Scott Wilson, who had been my friend since kindergarten. "Hey, Scott," I said cautiously. He looked uncomfortable but didn't leave. "Hey, Julian. Tough times, huh?" "You could say that. Have you heard something about me?" Scott sighed. "Look, Amanda's been telling people that you had some kind of breakdown after Tara died. Said you've been unstable, maybe even dangerous. I didn't believe it, but then your dad started saying the same things. I felt sick. My sister hadn't just manipulated my father. She had poisoned my entire community against me." Back at the motel, my phone rang again. It was Patricia, my mother-in-law, who was supposed to be on a 3-month European cruise, a lifelong dream she had finally fulfilled after retiring. "Julian, what on earth is going on? I've been trying to reach you for days." "Patricia? I thought you were still in Europe." "I got back last week. I've called the house at least 10 times. Each time, Amanda said you were out, or busy, or didn't want to talk to anyone. She made it sound like you were angry with me for some reason." The final piece clicked into place. Amanda hadn't just been intercepting my support system. She had been actively cutting me off from anyone who might help us. As I hung up with Patricia, promising to call her back with more details, there was a knock at the motel door. When I opened it, a professional-looking woman in her 30s stood there with a clipboard. "Julian Barnes? I'm Heather Wilson from Child Protective Services. We received an anonymous tip about possible child neglect. May I come in?" The CPS worker, Heather, surveyed our motel room with a neutral expression that didn't quite hide her concern. Lily was still feverish on the bed, and Carter sat silently in the corner, drawing on the back of a motel pamphlet with a stubby pencil. "Mr. Barnes, can you explain your current living situation?" Heather asked, making notes on her clipboard. I explained everything, from Tara's death to moving in with my father, to Amanda's accusations and our sudden eviction. As I spoke, I watched Heather's expression change subtly. "These allegations about gambling and drug use," she said carefully. "Do you have any idea why your sister would make them up?" "Amanda has always been jealous, but this goes beyond anything I could have imagined. She's systematically turned my father against me and cut me off from my support network." Heather wrote something down. "And these financial issues? Your bank account?" "I've been withdrawing cash for months," I admitted. "Things have felt off at home, so I've been preparing an emergency fund." Unfortunately, most of it was in my dresser, which is now sitting in the rain in my father's front yard. Heather looked up from her notes. Julian, I don't usually do this, but did you go to Westfield High? I nodded, confused by the change in topic. I thought I recognized you. I'm Megan Davis. I was a year behind you. We had Mr. Peterson's history class together senior year. The name clicked. Megan, you did the presentation on the Civil War that everyone talked about for weeks. She smiled slightly, then became professional again. Listen, I have to follow procedure here. But between us, something seems off about this case. The tip came in anonymously, but it was unusually detailed, almost like someone was trying too hard to make you look bad. My sister, I said wearily. I can't make this go away, Megan said, but I can give you some advice off the record. Document everything, every conversation, every text, every weird financial transaction, and get a stable living situation as soon as possible. That's what will matter most in my report. After she left, I sat on the edge of the bed, my head in my hands. Carter crawled into my lap. Are the police going to take us away from you? He asked in a small voice. No, buddy. That lady was just checking to make sure we're okay. But we're not okay, Lily said from the bed, her voice weak from fever. We don't have a home anymore. The next morning brought another crisis. When I checked my bank account, the balance was zero. Every cent was gone. A call to the bank confirmed that someone had withdrawn all the money yesterday afternoon using my debit card and PIN. Amanda again. She must have watched me use my PIN at some point. The motel owner, a gruff man named Ray, knocked on our door around noon. Your card just got declined for another night, he said. I need cash or you'll have to leave. I emptied my wallet, scraping together $67. This is all I have. Can it buy us 3 more nights? Ray looked past me at the children. His face softened slightly. 3 days. Then I need more money or the room goes to someone else. I spent that afternoon applying for emergency assistance at the county services office. The process was humiliating and ultimately futile. According to our records, you still reside at your father's address, the caseworker told me, and property records show he owns his home outright and has substantial savings. You don't qualify for emergency housing or financial assistance. But I don't live there anymore. He kicked us out. Do you have proof of that? An eviction notice? A change of address form? No. It just happened 2 days ago. I'm sorry, Mr. Barnes, but without documentation, there's nothing I can do. When I returned to the motel, the school principal called again. Julian, I need to speak with you about Carter. He had what I can only describe as a breakdown today. He started screaming in class that he didn't want to go back to the bad-smelling place and that his aunt was a monster. Our school counselor tried to talk to him, but he shut down completely. I'm so sorry, I said, my voice breaking. We're going through a family crisis. I understand that, but my concern is for the children. The counselor is recommending family therapy. I can give you some referrals for low-cost options. After that call, I sat on the motel bed, staring at the wall. We had 2 days of motel money left. My children were traumatized. My reputation was in ruins. My father believed I was a gambling addict and drug user. And now Child Protective Services was involved. I was at rock bottom. Or so I thought, until there was another knock on the door. Megan from CPS stood there, but this time her face was grave. Julian, we need to talk. My supervisor received another report about you, with photographic evidence. She handed me a manila envelope. Inside were pictures of me arguing with the motel manager, photos of the children looking distressed in our room, and worst of all, a picture of prescription pill bottles on a nightstand with my wallet visible in the frame. These are fake, I said, my voice shaking. That's not our room. Those aren't my pills. I believe you, Megan said quietly, which is why I'm here off the clock. Julian, someone is working very hard to make you look unfit. This feels like a setup, but my department has to investigate. You need to get ahead of this. As she left, I had a realization. If Amanda had been in my bedroom at Dad's house, she would have found my planning journal, where I kept all my passwords, account information, and personal notes. That would explain how she accessed my bank account and possibly other online accounts. In desperation, I called Scott, my old friend from the coffee shop. Julian, I don't know, man. People are saying some pretty bad things about you around town. Scott, you've known me since we were 5. Have I ever gambled, used drugs, been violent? There was a long pause. No. You've always been the responsible one. Then why would I suddenly change after Tara died? If anything, I became more careful because my kids needed me. Another pause. I guess that makes sense. I need a favor. Can you go to my dad's house and try to get a sense of what's happening? He might talk to you. Scott agreed reluctantly. An hour later, he called back. Julian, something weird is going on. Your dad seemed confused when I mentioned you, like he couldn't quite remember certain things. And Amanda was hovering the whole time, answering questions for him. When I asked directly about the gambling accusations, your dad looked at Amanda before responding. It was like he was checking with her to make sure he had the story straight. A chill ran down my spine. This was worse than I thought. Amanda wasn't just lying about me. She seemed to be manipulating our father in a way I hadn't recognized. That night, as the children finally slept, I searched through the few possessions we had salvaged from the lawn. In a zippered compartment of my laptop bag, I found a small flash drive I had forgotten about. 6 months ago, concerned about some missing items in the house, I had installed a small security camera in the main hallway. I had forgotten all about it in the chaos of recent events. I plugged the drive into my laptop and felt my heart rate spike. The last video had been recorded just days ago. I pressed play and watched as Amanda crept into my bedroom, rummaged through my dresser, and pocketed something that glinted in the low light. Another video showed her going into our father's study, opening his desk drawer, and removing what looked like checkbooks and bank statements. This was the evidence I needed, but it wouldn't be enough on its own. I needed to understand the full scope of what Amanda was doing, and I needed allies who could help me fight back. The tiny flash drive in my hand felt like the first ray of hope in a storm of despair. I had evidence now, actual footage of Amanda stealing from both me and our father. But I needed more than just evidence. I needed a plan. My first call was to Patricia, my mother-in-law. After hearing the full story and watching the video clips, she was livid. Julian, this is criminal behavior. Your sister needs professional help, and your father might as well. Pack up the kids. You're coming to stay with me until this is resolved. Patricia lived in a comfortable home about 40 miles away. She had always been kind to me, even before Tara and I were married, and had been a rock of support after the accident. The guest house behind her main home wasn't large, but it had 2 bedrooms and a small kitchen, which seemed like paradise compared to our motel room. I can't thank you enough, I said, as we carried our few belongings inside. The children ran to hug their grandmother, Lily's fever finally broken and some color returning to Carter's cheeks. Family helps family, Patricia said simply. Now, let's talk strategy. Over the next 2 days, I worked methodically to rebuild what Amanda had destroyed. I changed every password to every account I had. I froze my credit to prevent new accounts from being opened in my name. I started a detailed log of every suspicious activity I could remember, creating a timeline of Amanda's manipulation. Patricia helped me find a low-cost legal aid center, where an attorney named David listened to my story with growing concern. Based on what you've described, you have grounds for a restraining order against your sister, he advised. The video evidence and bank records should be sufficient. As for your father, that's more complicated. If he's experiencing cognitive decline, as you suspect, we might need to explore guardianship options, but that's a longer process. I don't want to control my dad, I clarified. I just want to protect him from Amanda and rebuild our relationship. David nodded. Let's start with the restraining order and financial fraud report. Those are concrete steps we can take immediately. While legal proceedings began, I reached out to my father's oldest friend, Frank Thompson. Frank had been Dad's fishing buddy for 30 years and had been like an uncle to me growing up. Frank, have you noticed anything different about Dad lately? Frank hesitated. Now that you mention it, Doug hasn't been himself for months. He gets confused about small things, repeats stories, sometimes seems to lose his train of thought. I figured it was just age. But when he suddenly started talking about you having all these problems, it didn't add up. You've always been steady, Julian, even after Tara's accident. Would you be willing to help me? I think Amanda has been taking advantage of Dad's confusion to turn him against me and possibly steal from him. Count me in, Frank said without hesitation. Doug is my oldest friend. If someone's manipulating him, I want it stopped. Armed with allies and a growing collection of evidence, I made an appointment with Dad's doctor, Dr. Marshall, who had treated our family for decades. Patient confidentiality prevented him from sharing specific information about my father, but I could share my concerns. Dr. Marshall, I'm worried about my father's cognitive state. He's been acting out of character, seems easily confused, and is being influenced by my sister in ways that don't make sense. Is there any way you could evaluate him? I can't discuss your father's health with you, doctor, Marshall said carefully. But I can tell you that cognitive changes should always be taken seriously, especially when they involve personality shifts or unusual decision-making. I'll make a note to do a thorough evaluation at his next appointment. Meanwhile, my review of the financial records I had access to revealed something disturbing. Regular withdrawals had been made from Dad's checking account, always in cash, always between $500 and $1,000. The pattern had started about 4 months ago, right around the time Amanda began making insinuations about my supposed gambling problem. I also discovered, through careful monitoring of my recovered email account, that someone had applied for 3 credit cards in my name. Thankfully, the freeze I had placed on my credit had prevented their approval. The most shocking discovery came when I checked the online activity log for my father's bank account, which I had access to because I had helped him set up online banking years ago. Amanda had transferred over $30,000 from his retirement savings into the checking account over the past 6 months, then withdrawn most of it in cash. Armed with this information, I met with Detective Sarah Reynolds at the police station to file a formal report of identity theft and financial fraud. Based on the evidence you've provided, we have enough to open an investigation, Detective Reynolds confirmed. Financial exploitation of the elderly is something we take very seriously, especially when there may be cognitive impairment involved. While the legal and financial aspects of our situation improved, I focused equally on helping my children recover from the trauma. Patricia was a godsend, providing stability and grandmotherly love when they needed it most. I found a child therapist who specialized in family crises, and both Lily and Carter began weekly sessions. My boss Jeremy surprised me with his support after I explained the situation. Julian, I had no idea things were this bad. Look, we value your work, and you've never let us down before. How about this? Work from home for the next month while you sort things out. As long as you meet the major deadlines, we'll be flexible about hours. This arrangement allowed me to be present for my children while still earning the income we desperately needed. Slowly, our lives began to stabilize. The children started at a new school closer to Patricia's house. We established new routines. The constant anxiety that had gripped me began to ease. 3 weeks after moving to Patricia's, I received a call from Megan at CPS. I wanted you to know that we've closed our investigation, she said. Your new living arrangement, the children's enrollment in school and therapy, and the evidence of manipulation we've uncovered all point to a parent who is doing his best in extremely difficult circumstances. The case is being marked as unfounded allegations. That afternoon, as I sat on Patricia's back porch watching the children play with her golden retriever, my phone rang again. It was my father. Julian? His voice sounded uncertain, frail in a way I hadn't heard before. Frank came by today. He showed me some bank statements. Are these real? Has someone been taking money from my accounts? Yes, Dad. I believe Amanda has been stealing from both of us. That can't be right, he said. But his denial lacked conviction. She said you were the one with problems. Dad, I think we need to talk in person. Would you be willing to meet me somewhere? Maybe Frank's house? There was a long pause. Okay, tomorrow afternoon. But I'm bringing Amanda so she can defend herself. Actually, Dad, I'd prefer if it was just us and Frank. I have some things to show you that I think you should see privately first. Another pause. All right. But I still don't believe Amanda would do these things. As I hung up, I felt a mix of hope and anxiety. This meeting could either begin the healing process or deepen the rift between us. But one thing had become clear over these difficult weeks. The path forward wouldn't include sweeping painful truths under the rug. Whatever had been happening with Amanda and my father, it needed to be brought into the light, for all our sakes. That night, as I tucked the children into bed in the guest house, Lily asked a question that caught me off guard. "Daddy, are we ever going to see Grandpa again?" "Yes, sweetie. In fact, I'm meeting with him tomorrow. He's been confused about some things, but we're going to try to help him understand what's been happening." "Is Aunt Amanda going to say more mean things about you?" I sighed. "I hope not. But no matter what happens, we're going to be okay. We have each other, and we have Grandma Patricia. We're going to be just fine." As I turned out the light, I noticed something on the nightstand I hadn't seen before. It was a small jewelry box. Inside was Tara's silver locket, the one that had gone missing from my dresser drawer weeks ago. There was a note in Patricia's handwriting. "Found this in Amanda's car when she came by looking for you last week. Thought you might want it back. PWW. I held the locket, feeling a surge of both anger and determination. The locket was meant for Lily, a connection to the mother she was too young to remember clearly. Amanda had stolen not just a piece of jewelry, but a piece of my daughter's heritage. Tomorrow's meeting with Dad would be difficult, but now I knew more clearly than ever that confronting this situation wasn't just about clearing my name or seeking justice. It was about protecting what remained of my family and reclaiming the truth that had been buried under Amanda's lies. Frank's living room felt neutral yet familiar, with its worn leather couch and walls covered in fishing photos. My father sat stiffly in an armchair, looking smaller and more fragile than I remembered. Frank hovered nearby, a steady presence in the tense atmosphere. "Thank you for coming, Dad," I said, taking a seat across from him. "I know this isn't easy." He nodded curtly. "Frank says you have evidence about Amanda. I want to see it." I opened my laptop and turned it toward him. "First, I want to show you some security footage from the house. I installed a small camera in the hallway about 6 months ago when things started going missing. The first clip showed Amanda entering my bedroom, rifling through my dresser, and pocketing Tara's locket. The second showed her in Dad's study, opening his filing cabinet and photographing documents with her phone. Dad watched in silence, his face gradually draining of color. "This could be taken out of context," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Next, I want to show you these bank records," I continued gently. "They show regular transfers from your retirement account to your checking account, followed by large cash withdrawals." "I didn't make those transfers or withdrawals, Dad." He studied the statements, his hands trembling slightly. "I don't remember authorizing these. And here are the false bank statements Amanda showed you, supposedly proving I had a gambling problem. Look at the real statements next to them. You can see they've been doctored." Frank put a hand on Dad's shoulder as he compared the documents. "Doug, I think you need to consider that Julian might be telling the truth here." Dad looked up, confusion and pain etched on his face. "Why would Amanda do this? She's always been my little girl." "I don't know exactly," I admitted, "but I think it started with jealousy and then grew into something more serious." "Dad, have you been having memory problems lately? Times when you can't recall conversations or decisions you've made?" He looked away. "Some. I thought it was just age. Amanda said not to worry about it." "I think we should have Dr. Marshall do a full cognitive evaluation," I suggested carefully. "Some memory issues can be treated, especially if caught early." Dad started to respond, but was interrupted by the sound of the front door opening. Amanda's voice called out, "Dad, are you here? I stopped by the house and you weren't there." She appeared in the doorway, freezing when she saw me. Her expression shifted rapidly from surprise to anger. "What is he doing here?" "Dad, you promised you wouldn't talk to him without me." "Amanda," Frank said firmly, "we're having a family discussion. Julian has shown us some concerning evidence." "Evidence of what?" she demanded, but her eyes darted nervously to the laptop and papers spread on the coffee table. "Financial fraud, for starters," I said quietly. "Identity theft, elder exploitation." "That's ridiculous. Dad, he's trying to manipulate you, just like I warned you about." Dad looked at her with new uncertainty in his eyes. "Amanda, Did you take money from my retirement account? What? No. I helped you manage your finances since you've been forgetful, that's all. What about these cash withdrawals? Over $30,000 in the past 6 months. Amanda's face flushed. You gave me that money. You said I deserved it for taking care of you, remember? Dad shook his head slowly. I don't remember that. Because your memory is failing. Amanda snapped, then immediately softened her tone. I'm sorry, Dad. It's just frustrating when you forget things we've discussed. I stood up, keeping my voice calm. Amanda, we have video of you stealing from both Dad's office and my bedroom. We have documented evidence of fraudulent financial transactions. The police are already investigating. Police? She paled visibly. This is insane. You're the one with problems, Julian. Everyone knows it. Actually, Frank interjected, people are starting to question your version of events, Amanda. Julian's boss, his friends, even the CPS worker who investigated your anonymous tip have all concluded that your allegations don't add up. Amanda's composure cracked. This isn't fair. He always gets everything. Perfect Julian with his perfect wife and perfect children and perfect career. Even after she died, everyone still fawned over him. Poor widower Julian needs our help and support. Her voice rose to a shout. What about me? I stayed home. I took care of Dad. What do I get? The room fell silent after her outburst. Dad stared at his daughter as if seeing her for the first time. Amanda, he said slowly, what have you done? Something in his tone must have reached her, because she suddenly deflated, sinking into a chair. I just borrowed some money. I was going to pay it back. How much? I asked. She didn't meet my eyes. I had some debts. Gambling debts, I guessed. Remembering her accusations against me. You were projecting your own addiction onto me, weren't you? Her silence was confirmation enough. And the lies about me? Turning Dad against me? Trying to get my children taken away? Amanda looked up then, a flash of defiance in her eyes. You think you're so perfect. You have no idea what it's like to live in your shadow. Dad was all I had after Mom died, and then you swooped back in with your sad story and your cute kids, and suddenly I was an afterthought again. So you decided to destroy me? I asked, genuinely trying to understand. I just wanted you gone. I wanted things back the way they were. Dad stood up shakily. Amanda, I need you to leave Frank's house now. We'll discuss what happens next when I've had time to think. Dad, you can't seriously believe. Now, Amanda, he said, with more firmness than I'd heard from him in months. Frank will drive you home. I need to talk to Julian alone. After they left, Dad and I sat in silence for several minutes. Finally, he spoke, his voice breaking. I don't know how I didn't see it. She's my daughter, and I didn't see what she was becoming. She needs help, Dad. Professional help. And I think you might need to see a doctor, too. He nodded wearily. I've been forgetting things, getting confused. Amanda would explain things to me, and it seemed easier to just believe her. He looked at me, his eyes wet with tears. I threw you and the children out of the house, my own grandchildren. Can you ever forgive me? I moved to sit beside him, putting my arm around his shoulders. You were manipulated by someone you trusted completely. And yes, I forgive you. The question is, what do we do now? Now, he said, straightening slightly, we fix what can be fixed. I want to see my grandchildren. I want to make things right, and I want to understand what's happening with my memory. As we talked through next steps, I felt a burden lifting. The road ahead would be difficult, with legal proceedings, medical evaluations, and family healing to navigate. But for the first time in months, that road was visible, no longer obscured by Amanda's lies and manipulations. When I returned to Patricia's that evening, I found the children playing a board game with their grandmother. Their laughter, so rare in recent weeks, filled the room like sunshine after a storm. How did it go? Patricia asked quietly when the children were distracted. Better than I expected. Dad saw the evidence, and Amanda basically confirmed everything with her reaction. He's going to see Dr. Marshall tomorrow for an evaluation. And Amanda? That's more complicated. She has gambling debts, apparently significant ones. Dad's talking about getting her into a treatment program, but there will likely be legal consequences too. Patricia nodded. Addiction is a terrible thing, but it doesn't excuse what she did to you and these children. I know. I'm still processing it all. But at least the truth is out now. Later that night, as I tucked the children into bed, Carter asked, "Did you and Grandpa stop fighting?" "We did, buddy. Grandpa understands what really happened now, and he wants to see you both very soon." "What about Aunt Amanda?" Lily asked cautiously. I chose my words carefully. Aunt Amanda is going through some difficult times. She made bad choices and wasn't honest, but she's going to get help. Is she going to jail? Carter's question was blunt, as children's questions often are. I don't know yet. But what's important is that we're all going to be okay now. We have Grandpa back, we have Grandma Patricia, and most importantly, we have each other. As I turned out the light, Lily spoke again. "Daddy? I'm glad we walked away that day, even though it was scary. Mom always said that sometimes you have to walk away to find a better path." The wisdom from her mother's words, carried in my daughter's voice, brought tears to my eyes. "Your mom was very smart, Lily, and she would be so proud of how brave you and Carter have been." In the quiet guest house, with my children safely asleep, I allowed myself to fully feel the events of the day. The confrontation with Amanda, the reconciliation with my father, the first steps toward justice and healing. It was overwhelming, but for the first time in a long while, the weight I carried felt manageable because it was finally shared. The following weeks unfolded with the careful, deliberate pace of healing. Dr. Marshall diagnosed my father with mild cognitive impairment, a condition that explained his confusion and susceptibility to Amanda's manipulation, but wasn't as severe as dementia. With medication and cognitive exercises, he showed improvement almost immediately. Amanda's situation proved more complex. The detective investigating the financial fraud recommended charges, but given the family circumstances and my father's reluctance to see his daughter face serious legal consequences, the prosecutor agreed to a plea deal. Amanda would avoid jail time if she completed a gambling addiction treatment program, underwent psychological counseling, and made restitution for the stolen funds. Our first family meeting with Amanda present was tense and emotional. It took place in a counselor's office, with a trained mediator to help navigate the complex feelings in the room. "I need to understand why," I said simply. "Not just the gambling, but the systematic effort to destroy my relationship with Dad, to damage my reputation, even to potentially have my children taken away. That goes beyond addiction." Amanda sat with her hands folded tightly in her lap. 6 weeks of intensive therapy had stripped away some of her defenses, but bitterness still edged her voice. "After Mom died, I was 16. You were already in college, building your life. I was left with Dad, who was drowning in grief. I became his caretaker, his emotional support, everything. Then you came back with your perfect little family, and suddenly I wasn't needed anymore." "That's not true," Dad interjected. "I never stopped needing you, Amanda." She laughed, bitterly. "Really? Because all I heard was Julian this, the grandkids that. My role became cooking and cleaning, while everyone fawned over the tragedy of poor widower Julian. I never intended to overshadow you," I said carefully. "I was just trying to survive after losing Tara." "I know," she admitted reluctantly. "That's what makes it worse. You weren't even trying to make me feel insignificant. It just happened naturally, like it always has." The mediator guided us through the painful conversation, helping to translate hurt into understanding. No single session could heal the deep wounds in our family, but it was a start. Outside the counselor's office, Dad pulled me aside. "There's something else Amanda told me privately, something I think you should know." "What is it?" Dad's eyes were sad. "She said that when you were children, your mother always told her that you were just like her, thoughtful, creative, gentle. Amanda felt rejected by your mother, felt she could never measure up. When your mother died, that wound never healed. Seeing you with your children brought it all back." This revelation hit me hard. I had been 10 when our mother died from cancer, Amanda only 6. I had memories of our mother that Amanda never got to create. I had never considered how that difference might have shaped her. "That doesn't excuse what she did," I said finally. "No, it doesn't," Dad agreed. but understanding is part of healing, for all of us. As Amanda's treatment progressed, the legal consequences of her actions became clearer. The court ordered financial restitution, 3 years of probation, and continued mandatory counseling. She was required to move out of Dad's house and establish independent living, a condition that both terrified and, I think, secretly relieved her. Meanwhile, the children and I began the process of rebuilding our lives. With Dad's cognitive improvement and Patricia's support, we found a small house to rent near both of them, giving us independence while maintaining family connections. My work-from-home arrangement became permanent, allowing me more time with Lily and Carter. The children's therapist reported steady progress in their recovery from the trauma of our sudden eviction and the family conflict. They still had nightmares occasionally, and Carter remained wary around Amanda during supervised visits. But their resilience amazed me daily. 3 months after the confrontation at Frank's house, we gathered for a family dinner at Dad's. Amanda was there, quieter than her old self but more authentic somehow. She had found a job at a local bookstore and was living in a small apartment, her first truly independent home. As we ate, Dad cleared his throat. "I have something to tell you all. I've decided to sell the house." This announcement surprised everyone. "It's too big for just me, and it holds too many difficult memories now. I've found a nice condo in that new senior community near the park. It has activities, people my age, and medical staff if I need them." "Are you sure, Dad?" I asked. He nodded firmly. "The house was meant for a family, and that chapter of my life is changing. Besides, I've talked to my financial advisor about setting up college funds for Lily and Carter with some of the proceeds." "Dad, you don't have to," I began. "I want to," he interrupted. "It's one small way to make amends for what happened." After dinner, I found Amanda alone on the back porch, staring at the old oak tree where we had played as children. "You don't have to lurk in the doorway," she said without turning around. "I won't bite." I sat beside her on the steps. "Dad selling the house must be hard for you." She shrugged. "Change is hard, period, but maybe necessary." She turned to look at me directly. "I'm sorry, Julian, not just for the money or the lies, but for trying to take away the only stability your children had after losing their mother. That was unforgivable." "I'm not sure forgiveness works that way," I said slowly. "It's not about declaring something forgivable or unforgivable. It's a process, for both of us. My therapist says, I need to build my own life, not define myself in opposition to yours. It's harder than it sounds." "I believe you can do it," I said, and realized I meant it. Our conversation was interrupted by Lily, who came running out to the porch. "Daddy, Grandpa says we can pick which of his things we want to keep before he moves." "That's nice of him," I said, lifting her onto my lap. "Is there something special you want?" She nodded seriously. "The big photo album with the pictures of Grandma, and maybe the cookie jar that always has snickerdoodles." Amanda smiled slightly. I was always partial to that cookie jar myself. Lily looked at her aunt cautiously, then said, "Maybe we could share it. You could have it weekdays, and we could have it weekends." This simple gesture of reconciliation from my 7-year-old daughter brought tears to Amanda's eyes. "That sounds fair," she managed. As we sat together on the porch steps, I realized that the family we were rebuilding would never be the same as before. It would be scarred, complicated, cautious, but it would also be more honest, more aware of its vulnerabilities and strengths. Later that night, as we prepared to leave, Dad pulled me into a tight hug. "I'm proud of you, son," he whispered. "The way you've handled all this, the way you've protected your children, while still leaving room for reconciliation. Your mother would be proud too." On the drive home, with the children dozing in the back seat, I reflected on the strange journey of the past several months. From the rainy day when we were thrown out of my father's house with nothing but the clothes on our backs, to this moment of tentative peace and new beginnings. The path had been painful, the challenges sometimes overwhelming, but we had survived. More than survived, we had found our way to a new kind of family truth. As I glanced in the rearview mirror at my sleeping children, I felt a surge of gratitude for their resilience and love, and for the unexpected allies who had helped us weather the storm. Whatever the future held, I knew we would face it together, stronger for having been tested, wiser for having been broken and mended. 6 months later, I stood in the front yard of our new home, watching Lily and Carter race around with their new puppy, a golden retriever mix we had named Hope. The autumn leaves crunched under their feet as they played, their laughter carrying on the crisp air. Our house wasn't large or fancy, but it was ours, purchased with the settlement from the insurance policy Tara had taken out years ago that I had finally been able to claim once all the legal matters were resolved. 3 bedrooms, a fenced backyard, and most importantly, stability. Dad pulled into the driveway in his new sedan, waving cheerfully as he got out. His condo at Riverside Senior Living had given him a new lease on life. He had joined several clubs, made new friends, and even started dating a lively widow named Barbara who shared his love of fishing. The cognitive treatments had been largely successful, and while he still had occasional memory lapses, his doctor was pleased with his progress. "There are my grandkids," he called, and the children abandoned the puppy to run to him, receiving the customary candy bars he always kept in his pockets for them. "Dad, you're going to rot their teeth," I scolded half-heartedly, helping him carry a box of old family photos he had brought over. "That's what grandparents are for," he winked. "Besides, I made sure they were the kind with nuts, so they're practically health food." We settled on the porch, watching the children return to their game. "How's work?" Dad asked. "Good. The company's expanding, and they've promoted me to lead the new remote development team. The flexible schedule means I can be home when the kids get out of school." "And the writing? Patricia mentioned you've been working on something." I smiled, still surprised by this new chapter in my life. Just a blog about single parenting after loss. It started as therapy for me, but it's building a small following. Some people find it helpful. I'm not surprised. You've always had a way with words. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, the kind that hadn't been possible during the tense months of Amanda's manipulation. "Have you heard from Amanda?" Dad eventually asked, his tone carefully neutral. "She sent Lily a birthday card last week. It had tickets to that children's museum in the city that Lily's been wanting to visit. Are you going to let them go?" I nodded. Amanda's been consistent with her treatment program. Her counselor says she's making real progress. The supervised visits have gone well. I think it's time to try rebuilding that relationship, carefully. Dad squeezed my shoulder. "You're a good man, Julian. Better than I was at your age. I learned from the best, even if we both lost our way for a while." The sound of another car pulling into the driveway interrupted our conversation. Patricia emerged, carrying a large casserole dish. Sunday family dinner had become our tradition over the past few months, alternating between her house and mine. "I hope everyone's hungry," she called. "I made that chicken thing with the crispy topping that the kids like." As we helped her inside with the food, my phone rang. It was Amanda. "Julian, I know it's your family dinner night. I don't want to intrude, but I wanted to ask, would it be okay if I stopped by for a few minutes? Just to give Lily her present in person? I won't stay for dinner or anything." I looked at Dad and Patricia, who had both heard the question through the speaker. They nodded encouragingly. "Actually, Amanda, why don't you join us for dinner? There's plenty of food, and I think Lily would love to show you the puppy." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure. We're family, Amanda. It's time." An hour later, we sat around my dining table, an imperfect family sharing a meal. Amanda was quieter than she once had been, but the bitter edge had softened. She had brought a photo album she had created for Lily, filled with pictures of Tara that she had collected and preserved over the years. "I've had these since before. Everything happened," she explained awkwardly. "I always meant to give them to you, Lily. I just never found the right time." Lily examined the album with reverence. "Look, Daddy, there's Mom in her college sweatshirt, the one you still have in your closet. She loved that ratty old thing," I said, smiling at the memory. "Refused to throw it out even when it got holes in the elbows. I remember she wore it to my high school graduation," Amanda added, her voice soft with recollection. "It was pouring rain, and she said it was her lucky charm for staying dry." The conversation flowed more easily after that, memories of Tara creating a bridge between past and present. Carter eventually convinced Amanda to play a board game with him, and I watched from the kitchen as my son, who had once been terrified of his aunt, patiently explained the rules to her. Dad joined me as I loaded the dishwasher. "Miracles come in small packages," he observed, nodding toward the living room where the game was underway. "Not a miracle," I corrected gently. "Just hard work and the choice to heal instead of hurt. We all had to make that choice." After dinner, as Amanda prepared to leave, she hesitated at the door. "Thank you for including me today. I know I don't deserve it." "It's not about deserving," I said. "It's about choosing to move forward." She nodded, understanding. "The counselor at the treatment center asked me what I wanted my life to look like in 5 years. For the first time, I could actually picture something positive. A life that isn't defined by jealousy or comparison. I'm glad," I said sincerely. "Everyone deserves that chance." After everyone had left and the children were in bed, I sat on the back porch with a cup of tea, reflecting on the journey of the past year. From the moment my father had thrown us out, to this new life we had built from the ashes of betrayal, the path had been neither straight nor easy. There had been moments of despair when I wasn't sure we would survive. Moments of rage when forgiveness seemed impossible. Moments of grief for the family bonds that had been broken. Yet here we were, not just surviving but rebuilding. My father was healthier and happier in his new community. My children were thriving in school and therapy. Amanda was facing her demons with courage I had never given her credit for. And I had discovered strengths in myself I never knew existed. The flash drive that had captured Amanda's theft still sat in my desk drawer, a reminder of how close we had come to permanent estrangement. But alongside it lay Tara's locket, now returned to its rightful place, waiting for Lily to grow old enough to wear it. Life would never be perfect. Amanda's recovery would have setbacks. Dad's cognitive condition would eventually worsen. The children would always carry the scars of their mother's death and the trauma of our eviction. But we had learned that family isn't defined by perfection or even by blood alone. It's defined by the willingness to face hard truths, to forgive without forgetting, to rebuild what has been broken, and to walk forward together even when the path is unclear. As I looked up at the stars visible through the trees in our backyard, I thought about what Lily had said that night at Patricia's. Mom always said that sometimes you have to walk away to find a better path. Tara had been right, as she so often was. Walking away from my father's house, that rainy day hadn't been the end of our story, but the beginning of a new chapter, one with more honesty, more resilience, and ultimately, more love than what came before. What my sister and father hadn't known when they watched us walk away was that sometimes losing everything is the only way to discover what truly matters. And what matters most, I had learned, isn't what you own or where you live, but the truth you choose to live by and the people you choose to walk beside. Have you ever had to walk away from a toxic situation to find a better path? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Sometimes the hardest decisions lead to the most important growth. If this story touched you, please like and subscribe to hear more journeys of family, healing, and resilience. And don't forget to share with someone who might need to know they're not alone in their struggles. Thank you for listening, and remember, even the darkest betrayal can sometimes lead to unexpected light.